All right, welcome back to the Texas A&M Aggies. Welcome back to Texas A&M Aggies Live, part of the Voice of College Football Network. I'm your host, Cameron Odyssey, joined by my co-host, as always, Cannon Torres. And we're going to start things off talking about Texas A&M basketball. Obviously, the Aggies got a huge win last night against Kentucky at home. And this was a must-win by every measure of the word. I mean, this was a situation where you lost two in a row. Losing to Arkansas on the road, losing to Texas at home, which did sting. And I had discussed last week, we discussed obviously off camera that if they can get this win against Kentucky, you and I kind of doubted them a little bit because of the way they played, but that team showed up and again, playing desperate basketball and sticking to what you know and what you're good at, it really came through. And I mean, if this team plays like this going forward, they do have a chance to make some noise in March. They do play LSU to end the regular season on the road. Again, A&M is a better team than LSU, but LSU has been very competitive this year. I think they're like 15-15 or something right now. So that's going to be a tough one, but if they can get that win, I mean, that pretty much solidifies their spot in the NCAA tournament. So you were there, right?
I was there on the scene, yeah.
So just give me your thoughts. I mean, because, all of us, the rest of us were watching on TV and just kind of blown away after I think they were up like Kentucky was up like 30-18 at one point.
With 8 minutes to go in the first half, it had seemed like that media timeout right there or right before it. Kentucky was up 30-18 at that point. A&M was down 12. It seemed like, this is just going to be another one of those. Hey, they get down, but then they show a couple of good runs. But Kentucky's ultimately going to stifle them. But from that point on, there was an air where it was just like, hey, hit another shot. Dominguez goes nuclear in the at the end of the first half. I mean, he hits three after three after three. Pop Isaacs hits a layup. Oladipo gets a layup. And they just kept going on this run. And everybody's going to talk about the offensive firepower that they showed at the end of that first half and starting into the second half. What I saw was amazing rotations on the back end. And they went with a new starting lineup this game after what seemed like, hey, we just need something. So they ended up going with an entirely new starting lineup besides Marcus Hill. And it ended up working out for the better. They were able to substitute in and out pretty well for this game. I mean, Rylan Griffin was amazing, scoring 21 points, scoring most of his points in the second half. A couple of deep NBA range threes. Dominguez was amazing, drawing defenders off the three-point line and finally taking the step-back shots I know he can take. An amazing night from both Pop Isaacs and Rashawn Agee. I think Pop Isaacs had his best game fully looking like a distributor on the offensive side of the ball. So he had 8 assists to go along with 12 points I think he was a plus 14 on the court. Even with some turnovers, which we knew was going to happen with him. But all in all, Aggies get, I think, 5 or 6 people in double-digit scoring. And from that point at the end of that first half, they just held an armbar to Kentucky. And Kentucky just could not shoot the basketball. I think they shot 30% from three, 60% from the free throw line. They shot 28 times from the free throw line and only landed 17 of them. So all in all, Aggies just had a way better shooting night, which we knew they were due for one, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And even if they shot, 68, 69% from the free throw line as well, they shot 46% from three. So some of these things just equal out right now, and they pick up their 20th win on the season. And now we're looking at getting into the NCAA tournament, barring a 50-point loss to LSU this Saturday, right? I think at this point, getting to 20 wins in a Power 4 conference, you should be able to get in. I mean, we've seen it not happen before with A&M at 20 wins, right? I mean, there was that season under Buzz Williams that they were the literal first team out because of a lot of other bid stealers coming in. So,
I don't want to cut you off, but yeah, I agree. And I think that this lineup that he went with is the formula going forward. I think to get that type of performance from Ruben Dominguez, who he had been struggling immensely, during the latter half of SEC play. I don't even want to say the numbers, they were that bad. And he knows it, right? That he's professional. That's the thing. People were kind of dogging him for that. This guy was going to get back to form somehow, and it helped getting off the bench, being as fresh as possible, and then just getting into a rhythm. And I mean, he's a rhythm shooter like any basketball player, especially a pure shooter like him. So it was great to see that. And Rashawn Agee, who, again, also coming off the bench, obviously playing 28 minutes, but maybe that's the strategy. Maybe that is going to win them a lot of games going forward, because if we're talking about seeding right now, and we'll get into the NCAA tournament things. I got something to say on that too. But if you can beat LSU, which you've already beaten them once this season, they're going to play hard. They want to end the season on a win. They want to have a shot, some really outside shot to like go on a run in the SEC tournament. So they're going to take this game seriously. But at the same time, listening to Bucky McMillan last night, I mean, this team's going to be focused. I mean, this wasn't an outlier. This wasn't, well, we're going to show up for this one and then we're going to let you down on Saturday. I mean, because we've seen that before, and we talked about fatigue. We talked about all these issues that happen late in the season. But I think this team is very, very focused. And if they can do this to a Kentucky team that held their own against Florida early this season, they have a lot of good wins. They blew out Vanderbilt 91-77 last Saturday. So they are a legit team. They're just not one of the best teams, but they're a legit team. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament as well. So talking about A&M's chances, going back to that Buzz Williams year, that was actually maybe months before I started covering A&M for Aggies Wire, which is kind of incredible. And I remember that was one of our first articles talking about how just ridiculous it was. But then when we looked back on everything they didn't do during that season, and we got to talk about like Quentin Jackson, the waste talent on that roster. It sucked, and they did go to the NIT championship. Probably should have won that game, but you can't win, you can't lose. I think was it 7 or 8 games in a row during that season?
I think it was around 6 in a row to end the season. So.
Yeah. And the worst thing about it is that you were losing to bad teams. This A&M team has 0 bad losses. Every loss they have is not considered bad. I mean, you can look at it, even non-conference. We can talk about, actually think about it, like SMU, Oklahoma State. Those aren't bad losses at all. Those are winning programs. Oklahoma State, I don't think they're going to get to the NCAA tournament, but they could make a run in the Big 12 tournament. That it doesn't matter, because bad losses are losing to the bottom dwellers of your division, losing to teams that you have overwhelming odds against. And A&M is not done. They've blown out the teams they're supposed to beat. And we talk about the recent losses, those are all some of the best teams in the SEC. You look at Arkansas and Darius Acuff and the talent they have. You look at Florida has just beaten everybody right now by double digits. It doesn't matter who you are. And even a Missouri team, right, that you lost, last second shot, that is a tournament team. That is a team that is talented enough, and they've done enough this season like A&M. So, look, I think it's just about seeding right now. I think you and I have talked about that. Like, I could definitely see a scenario where, let's say A&M loses this game to LSU by like 2 points, go into the SEC, maybe win a couple games, or probably a 10 seed, right? Probably a 10 or
I would expect a 10 seed.
Yeah. But if you beat LSU and you beat them by a pretty healthy margin, and you really make a statement at the end of the regular season, which the committee, we know they're watching that. We've had our doubts about if they're watching the conference tournaments a lot, because we've seen teams in the past, especially that A&M team we were talking about, that went all the way to the SEC championship game, losing just because they were just tired and fatigued to a rested Tennessee team, and they didn't get in. And it was kind of like, okay, does it really matter at all? I think it does in the early portions, because I think that if they do beat LSU, maybe you win a game or two in the SEC, you could end up being like a 9 seed or maybe an 8 seed. I don't know, but probably like a 9 seed, I would say. But I don't think Bucky McMillan really cares. I think he just wants to get into the tournament. I think this is a huge step for this program.
It would be a statement to get into the NCAA tournament in year 1, which was their goal all along. It wasn't a dream. It was a goal of theirs, and it's looking real good to make that happen. I think I wanted to know just before my power went out.
Oh, wow.
It's all right.
You're good.
Still fine for right now, unless my Wi-Fi breaks. So
no, we'll deal with it.
We'll deal with it here when we can.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think Rylan Griffin and Ruben Dominguez had over 78% true shooting percentage each, which if they are the ones that are on for A&M, there's no limit to what they can achieve, especially in the offensive end.
Oh, agreed. And I think the defense, is still a work in progress, and they do everything they can to get stops. Obviously, when you have that size disadvantage, it just doesn't help. And even Kentucky tried to take advantage of that with some of their bigs, that they had some success. But either way, I mean, just how physical they are and man-to-man and getting those steals and taking full advantage of them. I mean, Rylan Griffin was incredible on the move. I mean, just so soft near the rim. Didn't miss any of those easy layups, just took advantage of, Kentucky kind of playing lackadaisical in the second half. And honestly, I think that was probably the most impressive win I've seen all season. We talk about Auburn. We talk about some of the other road games. Even the road win against Texas was probably one of their better complete games of the season. But with everything on the line, with your tournament future, and everybody kind of doubting you because of how the way you've played, I mean, McMillan, really, we heard before the game, he said, well, you're going to see us show up. We're not going to leave anything out tonight. We're going to do everything we can to get this win. And they really showed that. So I'm very excited to see how much they can improve their seed line. I think that Saturday's game is going to be another litmus test for them. We've seen it was kind of probably interesting. I think it was last season during Buzz Williams last year where they did play LSU on the road, or it was maybe 2 seasons ago, but it's pretty similar. And again, LSU is one of those sneaky teams that has hung around all season with some of the better SEC programs. And so you're going to have to play exactly like this to have a chance there, and maybe a little less, and you can still get it done. But Ruben Dominguez, I think, is going to have another big game. But I really do think that McMillan, hopefully maybe he'll say it tomorrow, but stick with this game plan. Stick with this lineup, because I think you've found something here. I think that getting Dominguez ready to come in instead of kind of wasting those first couple minutes of the game, and him kind of having cardio lessons instead of really taking a lot of shots, and him being more of a guard, like a point guard, than a shooter. I think setting those things up is going to help a lot. So, but that's all I got. I mean, I think it's good to know, and I think anybody listening is later, that you and I both agree this is an NCAA tournament team. They've done enough. When you hit the 20-win threshold, you should be in the Power Four. I mean, we'll see, but I think the thing that's really in their favor is that they don't have bad losses. I think if they had bad losses, maybe. I mean, because we're talking about Auburn is, the big controversy right now. Should they get in? I don't think they should get in because they do have bad losses. I mean, they lost to Ole Miss recently. You look at even the bad teams in the SEC that A&M played. A&M smoked them all. They had that close win against Ole Miss, who's very competitive, but it would have resulted in a bad, I think it was a quad 3 loss or something like that. So getting that done, that's why they deserve to be in. And so I think these next couple of days and going into the SEC tournament, it's going to be fun to watch. So so we can switch to obviously we have a lot to talk about football wise, but on the recruiting front, you and I were talking off camera, kind of preparing the show, just talking about everything we've heard. And one of the more interesting aspects of the recruiting landscape with Texas A&M is Mike Elko has developed already a pipeline with Georgia. I mean, they kind of own that state right now. They do better there getting the top recruits than the Georgia Bulldogs do sometimes, which is just insane to me. But that's just how things kind of roll right now in the new NIL era. But focusing on 3 of the 2028 prospects and 127 prospects, all 3 elite in terms of just their skill sets. I mean, these are all guys who have been connected to A&M pretty closely.
I think that it's important to say that during this new age recruiting, they've gone to not only Georgia but Florida and California as well. Both polar opposite sides of the United States, especially for elite talent. I mean, they go into, the heart of California and land Brandon Arrington, and then they go, to Florida and land offensive linemen. They go to Georgia, land 2 elite safeties already in the 2027 class. Not to mention another, Elijah Patman and all these other guys that are already in the fold.
Yeah, you look at the 25 class too, with guys like Noah McHale, who's going to potentially be a starter, Adonis Curry, who's going to be a guy in the secondary potentially. I mean, he's been doing this for a while since he's been here, so it's been very impressive.
Yeah, but right now a lot of the more elite prospects, and we have seen elite prospects come from this state many times before, but Michigan has been forming a lot more of the elite players when it comes to class of 2027 and class of 2028. So I think the first guy that A&M was connected to, dating back to even before his sophomore year, they offered Dakota Garant of Harper Woods, Michigan. And as of right now, I believe he is supposed to be slated to visit A&M soon, but he's a guy from Harper Woods in Michigan that is really more of I wouldn't want to say 50-50 ball, but he's one of the more polished guys in 2027. He's been ranked inside the top 10 in, I believe, pretty much any site you go to. So Dakota Garant, definitely one to look out for in 2027 for A&M. I believe, schools like Michigan are obviously going to be on him. Oregon recruits the state of Michigan pretty well.
Ohio State
As well. A lot of the Big Ten teams are obviously going to be at the forefront of Michigan guys. But if A&M could go in just like they went into California, into Georgia, into Florida, into these other places before, even places like New Jersey, which it feels like you have a stud come out of there every so often. He could be another one of those guys for Holman Wiggins to progress forward in this wide receiver talent room that we've kind of switched up now. I mean, we went from a year where A&M's highest receiver was, I think, a 600-yard pass catcher to now pretty much having two elite wide receivers with Casey.
900-plus yards both.
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit more spread around.
Yeah.
Right. But
sure.
But I think Dakota Garant definitely projects more as a Z wide receiver. But he could be one of those more versatile Z wide receivers that we've talked about actually on here before. So I think he has a very high floor and the ceiling is up to him.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When we talk about recruiting wide receivers, you have to mention obviously Ohio State. They kind of own that position right now in terms of developing NFL talent. But and Casey Concepcion, who is just an awesome young man, I love that the national media is finally recognizing how just elite of a human he is, and at the same time, any NFL team who gets him is not just going to get a talented guy, but they're going to get like one of the better leaders in your locker room right away. And so when you are developing these players, even transfer players like Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, you see the guys coming in from the 26 signing class, Aaron Gregory leading that way. There was an article from ESPN talking about some of the newcomers, basically talking about all those wide receivers, including Madden Williams, Mike Brown. It's like they're doing a really good job of acquiring talent at that position. I think that Holman Wiggins, even being OC now, he's going to have a lot of say in terms of the wide receiver recruiting. He's got a type. He's got that type of athlete he wants. Yes, they want size at the X position. They want speed at Z, and they want that kind of slot guy that is just going to be a mismatch against linebackers and safeties. And like with where A&M sits right now among some of the top programs, they've already proven that under Holman Wiggins, even though he was wide receiver coach last year, now he's going to be the play caller. I don't expect them to have any drop off at that position, especially this year. We're going to talk about obviously Marcel Reed at the end of the show. Going into year 3, Marcel is going to have probably the most complete wide receiver group he's had yet because of the size added with Isaiah Horton now in the lineup. And, we're going to talk about obviously Marcel Reed's skill set and all those things, but any quarterback who has any decent arm is going to produce with that group. So you look towards the future, you look at the quarterbacks they're going to try to assemble in this, they're going to assemble through recruiting, the guys that potentially are going to get from the transfer portal. If you have talent at wide receiver, it's going to lure in more quarterback prospects, right? I am tired today, guys. Sorry. But those things both connect, right? When you have a good quarterbacks, you get good wide receivers. When you have really good wide receivers, you're going to get guys who know it's going to be an easier transition for them to be in a high. Okay, I can't talk today. You know what I'm saying? So it's just basically what we're saying is that if you can start to make progress with these guys in the 27 class, going into the 28 class, you're setting the stage because you already have done so much in the 26 signing class with that elite group you signed. and you are continuing to get these elite pass catchers out of the transfer portal. So these guys are always watching. That's the thing. They have internet like us. They're on X. They're seeing our articles. They're looking at guys committing to A&M or elsewhere, and they see a trend coming. So
yeah, and it's important. Like, hey, look at the production, and a lot of guys will take the production more than dollar figures now, right? Or it's a combination of both. I mean, that is the sport now, but. For wide receivers specifically, I think that Garant could be one of those receivers where it could just be unlocked at a place where he goes and it just clicks, right?
Yeah.
Same could be for his teammate, who is a 2028 prospect, but all the same, he's still elite, and that is 2028 wide receiver DeAndre Bidden up at Harper Woods. So he's about 6'1", 175-ish. And I think going into his sophomore year, he was just under 11 seconds in the 100-meter dash. So he has, that lasered track speed already that you can look back on. But he's very, very quick on his feet, and he makes DBs have to make a decision on him. That's really what it looks like from the sophomore film right now. He could play slot. He could play outside. He could go up and get it in traffic, right? So he's one that feels like if you were to put him at a Power 4 school right now and develop him for over 2 years and then put him on the field, he could be an absolute difference maker. But along with like Dakota Garant, I mean, they are teammates, so they have similar offers from Oregon, Michigan, A&M, Alabama, I'm sure. But if you are able to go up to Michigan and just, like we said before, the allure of what they've had in now proven track record with KC and Mario and Ashton Bethel Roman, you can go into these schools up north and bring them down to the SEC, and not only the SEC, but A&M.
Yeah, and again, we're talking that 6'1" size, that frame. We think of like Ashton Bethel Roman, who's on the roster right now, just a physical wide receiver. You can move around. He's played every position, I think, going back to last year. Now, granted, they didn't have a lot of size, so he was one of the bigger wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what you want, right? These kind of new age wide receivers. If you play physical, you can take hits. You're fast, you're quick, you're a great route runner. You have soft hands. You are very useful in the screen game. That just those quick passes just to get those chunk yards. I mean, these guys are kind of hybrids. You are seeing a lot of these like 6'5" gazelle type players who you just want to sit on the boundary and just go ball the crap out of them and basically go against smaller DBs. But at the same time, a lot of these pass recruits I'm thinking of, that 6'1" frame and that versatility was more important than those really, really tall guys. Because we think of Noah Thomas, for example, when in his recruiting, I remember that it was like they called him mini Mike Evans because he was just so hard to cover on the boundary because of his size. He's about 6'5", 6'6", something like that. I forget, but not extremely versatile. So that did hurt him at the next level a little bit. So versatility, I think, is just so much more important for these guys as athletes. And my favorite types are the guys who play every position. We think of like Dalton Brooks, A&M safety, that played, pretty much every position. I'm going to be honest.
Every position in high
school. Did he play wide receiver? I don't even know. I know he played.
If he did, it wasn't as much as he played, running back.
Which helps, man. It just does, though. It's like if you play running back and then you switch to wide receiver, you think you're afraid to take hits. That's the thing. You think you're afraid to catch a ball over the middle, which is the most dangerous spot in the football field. No. So that's the thing. These kids, look, football is going to continue to be a very physical, dangerous game. So you got to have really tough kids who are not just great athletes, but they're smart. They understand that in order to fit into any system, you have to be smart, but you also have to be understanding of your, body type and what you bring to the field and what you bring in certain schemes. Because we've seen I guess Mario Craver is that type of player, right? Because I think that when he does leave A&M after the 26th season, goes to the NFL draft, how teams are going to evaluate him because he is smaller. He's about 5'9". Are they going to see him as just an all-around gadget player? Are they going to see him as a slot wide receiver? or are they going to see him as just a guy who's just going to outrun coverage, right? We think like T.Y. Hilton, for example, he played every X or played the X. I think he played every position
pretty much every single one.
And so maybe that's Craver's route, but he's 5'9". If you're 6'1" and you've got that speed, you get that quickness, it's going to go a long way for you over the next, for your college and future NFL future. So
yeah, I think when I was looking more at like, hey, they're just offering guys from the state of Michigan or even Wisconsin or anything like that, I was looking and I'm like, wait, they've already had a kid on campus in the month of January this past month, and that it's already a pretty big one, and it's one of the top signal callers in 2028, and that is Cass Technical Donald Tabor in the second. He's one of the more raw like pass throwers in 2028, and he is a pocket passer. So from the last kind of offensive coordinator we had with Colin Klein, they were looking for more of the, not necessarily Marcel Reed, but guys who could, get out of the pocket if they needed to kind of get a little bit throw, medium route run on the run. But Donald Tabor he's really, really poised as a pocket passer. So he was, I think, he was a really, really good freshman All-American, or he was a second-team selection All-American, but still nonetheless with a Michigan Division I state title. He is more of the one who is really, really able to lob it over, the linebackers who are trying to key in on a tight end or a sitting corner or safety. He's able to lob it over them pretty easily. He is on the smaller side, but his frame is still huge. So if he's able to grow into more of the college-ready, weight, he'll be one of the best quarterbacks in 2028, and he's already being scouted as much. A&M has already been on him for a good while now. He visited at the start of January, and from all that I've heard from around that recruitment, A&M is trending upward there.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a touch thrower, right? I mean, he's that, and when you can work from that, when you are accurate and you're growing in your body, he's about almost like 6'4", I think, maybe 6'3.5" right now. Maybe I think like his college weight's it's going to be over 200 something, maybe 210, 215. I mean, this kid could be a force, right? That's the thing. Like when you're looking at these type of younger signal callers who are just still growing into their body, but their ball skills and their ability to move around in the pocket, and just that we talk about Jace Johnson, for example, A&M's 27 commit. They're very rare, and I mean that's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's again, he's a multi-sport athlete. That helps a lot. I mean, we remember Jimbo Fisher's obsession with that in recruiting. He wanted everybody to play like 4 sports, and he thought that really did help. Sometimes it did, sometimes it didn't. But I think it does help him as an athlete. And I think that quarterback right now, like you do have the size thing doesn't really matter. I think it's really we go back to like Tony Romo was undersized with the Dallas Cowboys. I think he was about 6'2". Right now, 6'2" is pretty much what a lot of NFL teams are looking at for their quarterback. If you are 6'4" or taller,
more of the norm.
It is. That's what's kind of crazy, right? The Baker Mayfield type of look. If you're a great athlete, you're accurate, you've got a big enough arm, you're going to make it, right? And if you're tough, you got toughness, you've got urgency. We talked about that. Mike Elko used that word perfectly when describing Marcel Reed, and pretty much A&M's offense entirely back last month during his last press conference. And I mean, that's true, man. If you play with urgency as a quarterback, you're going to win a lot of games, right? You don't get scared. You don't get, you're not lost when, you're trailing. You don't have to play perfectly into a system to have any success. You can kind of play out of the pocket, make plays with your legs. This is one of the more intriguing quarterbacks out there. I've watched a lot of this tape, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, I can't wait to see this kid over the next couple of years, because he's going to be elite, and he's already considered a 5-star prospect. So, I mean, he's
as far away as you can name 5-star prospects.
Exactly, which is crazy, right? Yeah, because in 28, I mean, we're focusing on the 26 class to sign. We're putting all our focus on 27. 28, it's kind of trickling down. And so him and a couple other players we don't really need to talk to today, but he's one of those elite blue chip guys. And I don't use blue chip a lot because I think that term's been overused, but he is definitely one of those blue chip quarterbacks that everybody's going to be after. And I think A&M has already created a well, I shouldn't say created, but they've really created a healthy relationship, I guess, with and a communication channel between both parties. And I think that's going to help a lot going into this summer, but mainly going into next year.
Yeah, 100%. And I think they've already landed their QB, like you said, in Jace Johnson in 2027. Mm-hmm. So who could be that guy in 2028? I really do think it could be Donald Tabor. They're in for guys like, Neiman Lawrence, and oh my goodness. Oh, they were in on a kid who reclassified to 2027, but no longer. But yeah, any thoughts on other pipelines that could be at the forefront of your mind that A&M really hasn't dipped into?
I mean, I could see, like, we talk about East Coast, right? We talk about like Pennsylvania. This is where Jimbo Fisher really thrived. New Jersey, Phil Diggs was one of those names. Tyrese Chappelle, when they landed him out of Philadelphia. I could easily see Mike Elko having a lot of success there in the future because of his background. He's a New Jersey native. This guy is as blue collar and East Coast as you get. Obviously was educated at Penn, which is an Ivy League institute, but still it's in Pennsylvania. So it's still kind of a blue collar community. So it's, he just knows how to communicate with these guys. He's not a salesman. He's not, selling A&M based on past success, because he knows like they haven't really succeeded the way he wants to. And I mean, we talked about going into like the 27 class and really focusing on that, going to the spring and summer. Yes, they can use past success now. Like we made the college football playoff for the first time in program history. We went 11-0, finished 11-2, which was the best record we've had in almost a decade, pretty much over a decade plus. But still, you haven't won a championship. I mean, look at Indiana, right? I mean, Cignetti cannot say, yeah, we won a national championship in Indiana, so he can pretty much persuade anybody. But until A&M does that, and look, that's very hard to do. Mm-hmm. The Texas Longhorns can't say that either. They can say, well, we have 2 playoff wins, so I guess I don't think that really helps much. So it's not like A&M is one of the only programs who can't do that. But it's always going to be easier for Ohio State and Michigan and others to recruit specific players they really, really want because they have that championship caliber. But I think in terms of just good old Cruton, as we say, Mike Elko is still one of the best out there, and I think I tell because one of my majors in college was communication, a lot of interpersonal communication stuff, and I can tell I'm not gonna say the word, but like a bull, people who are just they're not real at all. There's everything about them is fake when they talk. That is not Mike Elko. He's as real as it gets, and I think these kids know that, and I think that. It's not like they're looking at him as a father figure, but they're looking at him as, okay, this guy's just my coach. He's not just a guy who's leading my team and that I'm coming here for NIL opportunities. I want to play under this guy. Kind of same with Tommy Moffitt, right? Strength and conditioning coach. Like,
that is true.
Yeah, because these guys, that's the guy they spend a bulk of their time with, especially in the off season. And so when you have all those kind of alpha male coaches that, are all about ball. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do establish another pipeline, especially in the East Coast, because I think a lot of those guys that play in the winter, play in the cold, these are tough dudes. And I think that A&M, especially again, we don't know the future of like Tyrese Chappelle. There's going to be a lot of these guys that could potentially come back to the coaching staff in certain capacities that come from those areas, and they're going to be helping in that. So, we've already seen that this year with some of the guys coming back from previous rosters. So all in all, I just think that because of his ability as a recruiter, that they can establish a pipeline pretty much anywhere in the country. Because if you can do it in California, I mean, come on. Like, we would have never said that like 20 years ago because of like USC.
No, obviously not.
No. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And I still think back to Noah McHale because Oregon has dominated California, right? Because they've had to. They have to recruit. That's where they recruit the most. And, when McHale and Arrington chose Texas A&M over Oregon, that was a big deal. I don't think a lot of people realized how big of a deal that was because Oregon has dominated getting those top prospects, especially on defense.
Yeah.
In California. So.
I mean, hey, if they can do it there, they can do it anywhere. So
yeah, it is true. Like it's not hyperbole. Like, I mean, it's just been so freaking impressive to where, I mean, anywhere in the country doesn't matter. We talked about this all year. Like, they're going to be in on any recruit you mention. Anybody they have their eye on.
It really does seem that way.
It does seem that way. Like there's even guys that I've seen like, nah, they have no shot. And still, they make the final list. I'm like, see, it's just who they are right now as a program.
They're just pushing and pushing and pushing. They're wanting to break the mold of, they can't win over this certain hump that other people are putting them under. But now
I think it helps them. I think it helps them though. I think it does fuel them. And I think that if you have Texas, you have all these other rival schools who have every right to say, like, you haven't won anything. I saw that today. Like, there's an article about, the most players like in PFS rankings or something like that. And there's a Texas guy who's just like, you haven't won this, you haven't done that. And I'm like, keep it coming because they like this. It fuels them. It keeps them going. They're not going to cry in a corner and go, you're right, we haven't. Like, everybody's chasing after the gauntlet.
Yeah.
So, and A&M is going to keep doing that under Mike, no matter what. And they are not sleeping. They are restless in terms of thinking we could have won that game against Miami if we did this differently. Maybe if we didn't have wind being the biggest issue, but they've already gotten to the college football playoff, which was the biggest thing that was kind of, I guess, breaking down that barrier. And I still think that breaking down that barrier, beating LSU on the road was even bigger. Hadn't done it since '94, but you did that so many times last season. And so now it's just moving forward, right? There's no more barriers outside of getting like the second round of the CFP because they've already done that. So I think that's going to help a lot. And I just think that's going to continue helping recruiting because, like we said, you didn't have a lot of past success to go off of. You just had like, I honestly think some of the recruiting was like, look at the 90s, look at what we did with RC Slocum, look at how we developed players then, how they did this and this, because it is a good way to recruit because a lot of these kids can go on YouTube and they can watch those defenses. They can watch the Wrecking Crew. They can watch some of those running backs that play for those teams. And then you can go into the late 2000s, even with Jimbo Fisher, and look where they succeeded and look where they failed, and then look at what Mike Elko's building. And I think that all kind of comes together and helps a lot because I'll tell you this. I'm sick of mentioning Texas as much, but I will say, like, Vince Young, there's a reason he's always connected to the programs. People said, well, dude, you played there like 20 plus years ago. It doesn't matter because these kids see Vince Young's highlights.
You played for the University of Texas.
Exactly. Elite. He's one of the best college football players ever. And I will say, I mean, it's fun to watch his highlights. I'll be honest with you. And you think that isn't used in recruiting? I mean, come on. Everybody uses everything they can. But I think that last year's success, you can just play that over and over. Think of the Notre Dame game, right? I mean, you could just play that on a reel. And so this is the type of team we want to be. When our backs are against the wall, we're not scared. You keep doing that, recruiting is going to come through.
And you know who else is going to come through? Our sponsor, Underdog. I think that
nice.
Transitions are great.
I know. You're better than I am.
But Underdog is partnered with our show. So if any of y'all like me, like a little bit of extra action and like to make a little bit of cash while watching your games, I'm a big NBA fan. So right now they do have futures lines if you want. My San Antonio Spurs are right now odds to win the NBA championship plus 400. So if you want to go over there and deposit just $5 into your new account with our code VOCFB Aggies, you actually get $50 in bonus credited to your account immediately. No strings attached. Just deposit $5 into the account. You get $50 extra if you use our code VOCFB Aggies. You can sprinkle it on anything you want. NBA, it could be MLB, it could be Major League Soccer. Go over there, check it out. Big thanks to our sponsor, Underdog.
And as always, if you have a gambling problem, you can always call 1-800-GAMBLER. So yeah, I think that, and I think it's always a fun kind of exercise to talk about the recruiting future because you and I, it's a big part of our lives and our jobs. And I mean, it's going to get even busier going into next, the end of this month. Obviously, spring football starts on the 20th for A&M. Around the SEC, I think everybody's starting either the 15th or 20th. So that was today. But we will switch. So Cody Nagel of CBS Sports released his SEC quarterback rankings. And we've done a couple of these this offseason. I think this is one of the better rankings that anybody's done so far. I think they're pretty accurate. And
Cody's very good at what he does.
He is. And he gave a great description, I think, for for Marcel Reed, which I can get up. But overall, I just want to ask you personally, while I do get this up, what do you think about the rankings? What do you think about Marcel Reed's positioning? I think it was pretty accurate. I think it was very fair so far among the 16 signal callers. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
My overall, I think it's very fair coming off the season that he had. I mean, with the ups and downs, I think a lot of it could be more projection than resume for a lot of guys. But then again, at the bottom of the list, and we'll pull up the list and we'll go from the bottom up for these in a second. But my thoughts on where he had Marcel was just like, okay, he's left room for improvement. That's great. That was really what it came down to for me, because I think A&M fans, writers, people who watched the games, were seeing this team kind of be a team and go 11-1 as a team. It wasn't necessarily on the back of any one person, maybe a couple of the wide receivers, but a lot of what happened was this team kind of clicked at more moments than opponents did. So is Marcel Reed able to kind of click more with what he has along the offense? I mean, he's losing 4 offensive line starters to the NFL draft. He's coming in. He does know most of what he's going to be doing on offense. I mean, Holman Wiggins, he's familiar with him. It's not going to be the same offense, but there is room for improvement, and that was reflected in the ranking.
Yeah, and he basically, and I can kind of sum it up, kind of talking about his EPA per play, which was 0.15, is pretty modest overall, and looking at the performances against Power 4 opponents with a winning record, that did include Notre Dame. He did not have his best games. Obviously, we look at Texas, the losses to Texas and Miami, probably the worst play we've seen from Marcel Reed in a while going back. He's had a lot of trouble against Texas for some reason. I think it's just the defensive scheme. I think it's a lot of pressure. And I think really going back to like 24, it was just the lack of options in the passing game. This season, who knows? Maybe this team was fatigued. Maybe they just weren't ready for the moment. Those are the type of things that Mike Elko did talk about this offseason, that they need to be more ready for the big games. They need to I guess, not use up all their juice going into the freaking season finale against Texas. And it always matters because it is such a confusing game, because sometimes it matters for playoff positioning. It did last year, and it might be even more important this year because of the way that both teams' schedules look, especially A&M's at the end of the season. So really, what version of Marcel Reed, and that's what Nagel asked, was what version of Marcel Reed is A&M going to get in the big moments? And I think that's what we're all asking, right? Because if we look at what he did overall, which was very impressive, right? Threw for 3,169 yards, I think over 20 plus touchdowns. Did have 12 interceptions. Because of some of the sacks, the rush yards weren't as great. I think it was over 500 rushing yards, I believe. And look, when you play like that and you play consistent against average to below average teams, it's good, but it's not good enough, because we've seen guys like even Carson Beck elevate his team more. And maybe he did have a better overall team, but some of these veteran quarterbacks are just more used to, in the big moments, taking control, taking over games when they have to. And look, Marcel really hasn't done that yet. South Carolina was really the only game we saw that, but that was more of a full team effort, I would say. Marcel did make some big throws, but the receivers made great plays. The defense really stepped up, shutting out South Carolina in the second half. So I haven't seen a game yet where Marcel has just taken over when everybody else is playing like crap. And until we see that, it is fair to say, look, he's better than middle of the pack, but he's a little above middle of the pack right now because of some of the guys coming in, some of the guys coming back. Obviously, March Manning, topping that list because of the way he played at the end of the season. And they do project getting Cam Coleman and finally getting that big X wide receiver, along with a very, very talented wide receiver group they have. Very good defense, should be an improved offensive line. Texas is going to be one of the better offenses, you think, right? On paper at least. But again, it is funny because if you want to rank Marcel Reed higher, I'd love to know why. And that's why I loved Nagel's reasoning.
Do you want to go from the bottom up and take a look at these guys?
Yeah, let's go ahead, because I think it's very interesting to do that.
I think from the bottom up, Jared Curtis is going to be a true freshman who's the projected starter. KJ Jackson, same reason. George McIntyre, I mean, when we were discussing a lot of the other QBs on an earlier show this new year, we had projected that George McIntyre would be the starter and that Joey Aguilar would be denied his waiver. So that has actually worked out all right so far on our predictions. But George McIntyre is going to have to compete against, Faison Brandon, who is a stud five-star quarterback. But George McIntyre has been in that system for just under 2.5 years now. Aaron Philo is coming over from Georgia Tech, but he's familiar with the offense that Buster Faulkner has. It's just a new coaching staff there, and I think they're wary of that. Austin Simmons looked decent for Ole Miss before getting hurt, and then Trinidad Chambliss coming in and looking like a literal SEC god. And Kamario Taylor, who you and I are very high on.
He's a dude. He's a dude.
State. Yeah. I think that he is one where if people aren't looking at him too hard, he could kind of blow up in everybody's faces and be one of the upper echelon QBs in the SEC. So not too many gripes so far. It's just of a lot of
I would say the bottom four are all unknowns. Like Jared Curtis, for example, 5-star quarterback, freshman. Nobody knows anything. Talented. The Philo thing, it's a system that he knows. So I think he'll be good enough. I could easily see him being an above average quarterback that just stays within the system, plays safe, doesn't throw a lot of picks, not a big game changer type of quarterback. But I did love this ranking right here because I think I forget it was either SEC Unfiltered's quarterback rankings where we went through this, so it's kind of fun to do it again. Kenny Minchey I am very high on because his head coach, Will Stein, is an OC. He is a play caller. He was obviously Oregon's OC for years, had a lot of success there. Minchey is a guy who did contend for the starting Notre Dame job last season. So he is good enough to get that done and start at Notre Dame. So he's more than good enough. Oh, crap. Well, until Cannon comes back. All right, let's see. Nope, there we go. All right.
We're back. Sorry.
No, you're good. So, let's get that list back up quickly. But, anyways, with Kenny Minchey.
Sorry about that, y'all.
Yeah, with Kenny Minchey at 9, I think that if you wanted to project somebody right now, that's probably the best guy to project because I think they do have enough on offense to get it done. He is a dual threat guy. I'm going to be honest. I'm very excited to see Kentucky next year. I think they just did a really good job in the transfer portal. They built an O-line that's pretty damn impressive. Mm-hmm. And look, if you can give him protection, I think that he could be one of the surprise quarterbacks. And then John Mateer, I think you and I are going to agree on this. He's hit or miss. I have no idea if he's completely healthy. I mean, he did not look like the guy we expected coming into his first year with Oklahoma from Washington State. I don't know if it's too big for him. He's a very physical player. Like he's going to get it done with his legs if he can't throw the ball. So he does fit what they want to do on offense, but at the same time, he has to be a better passer. So I'm very happy that Nagel put Marcel Reed above John Mateer because that's the fairest thing you can do because Marcel is a better overall quarterback than John Mateer, in my opinion. He's especially a better passer than John Mateer, but
right now it's not showing because of our setup, but number 10 is Alabama's Keelan Russell.
We did miss that one.
So Cody is projecting that Keelan Russell beats out Austin Mack for the starting job.
Which is interesting because I think Austin Mack is pretty good. I think and that's someone I kind of thought could take a step in that offense, but at the same time, Keelan Russell was a 5-star prospect and one of the more live arms in that recruiting class. So
and when Keelan Russell signed on to that class, I mean, this was Alabama's coach coming off the first year of recruiting. This was his first class at Alabama, and they flipped Keelan Russell from SMU. Not a lot of people remember that he was committed to SMU before, but when he came in, all the Alabama fans were like, all right, we need to give the keys to the kingdom to this guy. He needs to start over Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. We need him to start. he's going to have a battle with Austin Mack, who has been in, the system that they run for years, dating back to his time at Washington. And he is massive. I think he's 6'6", 6'5",
He's big, yeah,
and has an arm. So I wouldn't be surprised if the starter for the year is Austin Mack, and then through the year they kind of transition to Keelan Russell if things aren't going well. Maybe they could be going well and they still transition to him. But Marcel Reed comes in at number 7, just below Lenore Sellers and Byron Brown. Both are coming from, pretty hyped places. I know Lenore Sellers is now going into year 3, being the starting QB for South Carolina. There was a lot on his shoulders. I mean, Byron Brown is coming from a group of 6 program like UCF, but is playing for pretty much the same offensive style, the same kind of area that he knows with Alex Golish. So kind of give me your thoughts on 5 and 6 being above Marcel. Kind of give your thoughts on it. Yes, no. I like.
Yeah. So yeah, the Byron Brown thing, I think we saw that in the previous ranking we did a couple months, or maybe last month, but I don't know, time flies, man. But look, I get it. I understand it to a point because they do think he's more of a playmaker overall. I think that Marcel kind of becoming more of a pocket passer outside of a couple games. He was less of like, run after the third play or something like that because he had more wide receivers at his disposal. He had more talent overall. So I think they believe that that's just who Marcel Reed is now. I don't believe that at all. We have no idea what this offense is going to look like going into next season because Holman Wiggins is now the OC. He could easily change things up. Marcel could be using his legs even more. We have no idea. So it is hard to rank these 3 guys. Lenore Sellers is always going to get a lot of hype. I get it. Look, they got a new OC. They're hoping it works out because he is a talented player. It's just he has not put it together yet. That's the problem. Like it was at the 24 season that they went on that run. Look, that was a full team effort. He did do very well. He was efficient in the pocket. He used his legs. He's a huge dude. He's one of the hardest players to sack. I mean, it's incredible some of the sacks he's evaded over his last couple seasons. So I get it. It's a lot of projection there of like what they think he can do. But we did this last year, right? I think he was ranked like top 3 last year in quarterback rankings where Marcel was like 9 or something. It was something like that. But kind of the nobody knows anything because when you do have new play callers, it's the same thing with Florida right now, right? We don't know what we think it's going to look like what we saw with Georgia Tech. But you know what? You've got 2 offensive coaches there, right? Because Summerall was an offensive coach.
He's been all around. I mean,
he's kind of all around. Yeah,
you're right. He's been a guy. I mean, John Summerall, I've talked about before, is a guy that will throw out the last year's schemes if it's not working, and he'll do a different one.
He's a chameleon. Yeah,
he's a chameleon, and that's why I think he's gonna work well in the SEC.
I think he'll be fine. I actually am kind of interested to see how that works. But either way, yeah, Sellers he has to put it together. And I hope he does, right? I hope he doesn't do it against A&M, but I hope he does put it together overall because I think that he does have an NFL future. It was disappointing and actually just bizarre to see the way he played like in the second half against A&M when they had that huge lead and they just fell apart. And it was either just bad play calling, they just don't trust each other. Maybe they just aren't good enough overall. Because we do know A&M, we saw with the 13 combine players we're going to touch on how they did at the end of the show, but they were a very, very talented team. Like overall, that roster is one of the best A&M has had. So is it about talent for Sellers around him, and they do have a veteran O-line? So if he does get blocking and his receivers do their job, I think that he's going to have a great season. But the Byron Brown thing that's another projection there. Going to Auburn with his head coach from South Florida. They know each other. He is a playmaker. He's got a great arm. He's one of the better running quarterbacks in the country. He's pretty fluid. He's kind of bendy. He's like one of those weird. I wouldn't say Lamar Jackson, but there's just something about his running style. He's just a very interesting and fun player to watch. So I think that they're kind of looking at him being one of those surprise guys, kind of like how I think Kenny Minchie's going to be. I think that's what they see Byron Brown's going to be. I think that he could be like that surprise guy for Auburn. Like,
I also think that Cody has looked at it like this, where he's placed kind of the top 4, besides Lenore Sellers, who's kind of a little bit of more of the unknown, because they probably going to have a new offensive line this year. They already have 2 offensive linemen out for the year with injuries. He's placed, Arch Manning, Trinidad Chambers, Gunnar Stockton, Sam Levitt, all NFL projections up at the top. And I think that's probably where my mind is too. With Arch Manning, it could be a projection, but from what I saw from him the last 4 games of Texas's season, it seemed like their offense started to click more with him behind the helm, and he could be one of those electric players. But Trinidad Chambliss also had a takeover in the playoffs. I mean, he lit up team after team after team, and it was just before the season. It felt like we were talking about, Austin Simmons is going to be this guy for them, but Trinidad Chambliss is a great story and has backed it up.
So he's who Marcel Reed needs to be. And that's what we've been talking about. There's been this conversation. I remember when they were playing in the playoff, and obviously was eliminated. There were a lot of people saying, well, why can't Marcel Reed do that? I'm like, well, okay, they're different players. But at the same time, Marcel was a higher recruit. He's equally as athletic. The way he's built, he can become that type of quarterback. So there isn't a ton of space between these guys overall. I'm going to be honest with you, because outside of Byron Brown, he's still kind of he's interesting in the middle. But these guys all have a ton of potential, right? Obviously, these 3 are top dogs. Like Gunnar Stockton is one of the most reliable quarterbacks in the country. Like, he's a get it done type of dude. He has NFL talent. He looks like a guy who's a plug and play type starter for a like a Shanahan type offense, right? That's what I'm going to say. He'd be perfect in that. Obviously, Chambliss is probably the best playmaker in the country. And like we said, Arch Manning, with all the freaking hype behind that young man. And we're all, look, I get it. A&M fans are never cheering for Texas. Cheer for the player, I guess. Like, I hope he has success. But at the same time, they did start to look like that team we expected to see throughout the season. Granted, you can blame the offensive line. We talked about that on this show before, and we will do that more when we kind of preview the season going into the summer. But they got a lot of tackles in the transfer portal. But
that is true.
I'm still a little bit like, do they have enough guards? Do they have guys they can trust? I think they do, but at the same time, if the guards don't block and there's a lot of interior pressure, Arch Manning, it's going to be tough because he hates pressure up the middle like any quarterback does. He struggled against it a lot last season. But look, this kid, even when he was hurt, just balled out at the end of the year. He had one of his best games against A&M. He continued that in the bowl game against Michigan. So I think, again, getting Cam Coleman, your wide receiver room is complete. You've got that guy you can just throw 50-50 balls to. You've got a red zone threat. Texas is going to be very, very tough to beat, and I think Arch Manning is going to probably have his best overall season. But I think that it's really hard not to rank these guys top 3 and then really kind of throw everybody out, because in the top, 4 through 10. And I think, look, it's going to get very interesting when we go into spring. And we're going to probably preview that more going into next week, what we expect. It's getting closer and closer at the end of the month. But you are in the dark right now, which is really funny to watch.
It's absolutely crazy. I mean, the power goes out. I'm going off of a hotspot right now.
Yeah. So we're going to talk briefly about the combine. It's just funny looking at that. But so out of the 13 players from Texas A&M's 2025 roster who competed in the NFL Combine last weekend, I mean, I watched almost every single one. Obviously, Casey Concepcion talked to the media about a stuttering issue, and everybody kind of realizing, man, this guy's just like us. Like, everybody has speech impediments and problems. I was talking to somebody the other day. I happen to be a very good communicator. It's genetic. I don't have those issues, but I know a lot of people who did. And, to have a guy like that, speak up and become the voice for it is fantastic. I love that kid. He had a freaking fantastic combine for all the things they talked about, him dropping big passes and stuff. I mean, it's the hand drill. I forget what it's called. It's a back forth hand drill from left to right. Didn't drop one ball. Looked smooth as ever. This kid's going to be a first-round pick, I believe, and he's going to be a steal for whoever gets him. But I will focus on because I would love to get your opinion on this, but I think the offensive line shined immensely. I think that was, I mean, Trey Zune had 33 bench reps at 225. He led all O linemen. Chase Bisontis looked fantastic in the drills. He is one heck of an athlete.
Chase Bisontis was one of the only guys at the combine to do every single event.
Exactly. And that's good to see. And he's healthy, so he's plug and play. For whoever gets him, he's plug and play at any guard spot. He can play tackle. He basically said, I can play any position. You know, he can thank Jimbo Fisher for that, for starting him at right tackle and putting him through hell for that first season. But it helped him, man. And then Demetrius Crownover, who I actually wrote about the other day. Look, they're not talking about him enough. Markel Bell, who's one of probably the biggest O linemen in the draft round. He's like 6'9". He's got 36-inch arms.
He's huge.
So, I mean, we'll see if that translates because he's a monster. If that guy fell on me, I'd die probably. Yeah. But Crownover, 6'7", 319, I think was the measurements, 35-inch arms. And there was an NFL draft analyst who basically said, we need to talk more about Demetrius Crownover because he has a ton of starts at right tackle, started every game last year, did very well for the most part, had that really bad game against Miami. Again, everybody struggled against Ruben Bain. Okay, everybody did. So he's going to be a top 10 pick. Okay, so it's not fair to criticize him for that. But I think this kid has a very bright future if he gets to the right franchise and they have a good development plan because he has all the traits and attributes and he's a heck of an athlete. So I like what I saw there. Overall, I mean, who's your biggest standout?
My biggest standout was Chase Bisontis.
Okay, yeah.
Just because he was just lights out and way above consistent for most of the events. So we had already heard projections of him being, you know, an early second rounder, I think is where the hovering spot was.
Yeah.
Could an NFL team who was really good this past season, like the Seahawks or the Rams just traded their first round pick to the Chiefs, right at the end of the draft. Could he sneak into the first round? Could A&M have 2 or 3 first round picks this season? I think you and I are both under the impression that KC is almost a lock to go first round now.
I do. I agree with that. I think it's him. Cassius Al, I think, is a lock for top 20 at least.
I think top 30. I think Howell could fall.
He could fall a little bit because of the arm length. I think,
but Bisontis is a guy who could just fall into a starting left guard or right guard spot depending on which team needs him. I mean, the analysts were just absolutely pumped about what they saw. I think he was just really incredible for it. I think that Will Lee had some amazing broad jump numbers. He's I mean, this is a guy who came up from JUCO to Kansas State to A&M, and now look at where he's at. He's at the Combine, so we're pretty happy for him.
It's athletic traits, man. I mean, that's the thing with Will Lee. I knew that, you know, he struggled a little bit last year. Obviously, Deseric's kind of ascended. Excuse me. But I knew at the Combine that he was going to test well. I just had a feeling about it because of the way he's built. I mean, he's just he's a freak, man. I mean, he's one of those guys that, like Bruce Feldman's freak list. I'm really surprised he wasn't on there because he is one of those players like Jalen Jones was going to the draft. He was a 7th round pick, ends up being a starter for the Colts. And I think that could be the same trajectory for Will Lee. Mid-round, a late round pick, take a chance on him, put him in your roster. He's got that dog mentality. He's a tough dude. He's going to play to the whistle, and he's going to be, like we've been talking about that term, plus player for you on special teams, whatever you ask him to do. So Mike Elko has to be so proud of this group because coming in, almost all of these guys were not his in terms of recruiting, in terms of the transfer portal. Obviously, he did land Cassius Howell on the 24 portal, so that is one of his guys. But a lot of these guys, I mean, you know, we're going to be talking about that next year with some of the guys coming out of the draft, guys like DJ Hicks and others who were, you know, 23, 24 prospects and guys who have been working their butts off you know, in the program, moving up and doing everything they're asked. And we talked about Albert Regis, who had a fantastic combine, who really helped his draft. I mean, I was like a proud parent watching him. I'm going to be honest with you because I've been covering Albert's career in A&M for a long time. And I mean, he's going to make some money. He's probably going to be in the crowd.
Who else is a proud parent? I think we'll end with this is Tommy Moffitt because he,
he developed all the guys.
pumped with how they've trained for this. This is their moment. So kudos for us for the strength conditioning is real, folks.
Yeah, and that's why he won the award. So I mean, So we'll end on that because you are truly in the dark right now.
I am in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's
pretty dark.
Yeah, but we will be back next week. Possibly, just depends on the schedule because we do know the SEC men's basketball tournament. I think it starts Wednesday, right?
Wednesday.
Yeah, so we'll most likely be back on Tuesday. A&M does end their regular season against LSU on the road, so we will not be interfered with basketball. So most likely we will be back on Tuesday night. I think we covered a lot of good things today, and we've got it's going to get even busier with spring season starting. But as always, you can follow me at Cameron Odyssey on X. You can follow Cannon at Torres Cannon. You can follow all my work at Aggies Wire. We're writing about everything right now, but really going to have a lot of focus on basketball going forward, especially the NCAA tournament projections going into Selection Sunday. Cannon, where can people follow you?
You can follow me over on Patreon at the Bell Tower or at Bell Tower Intel for all your recruiting needs covering A&M football and basketball.
All right. So gig 'em as always, and we'll see you guys next Tuesday.